Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Let's get into this stuff. All right. So today, I'm going to try to keep this one a little shorter. And a couple questions I had right out of the gate were once we're done going live, is this stuff still available? Yes. It's on our YouTube channel. There's like two sections. I think one that says content, one that says live. But it should be under that live section. But anyway, today, like I said yesterday, via Twitter, Facebook, whatever, my goal is to focus on what I know, back to small caps. Going to try to leave this bank stuff alone. All I've really done Friday, Monday, Tuesday was bank stocks. And as they say, I caught some lightning in a bottle, especially Friday and Monday. Tuesday overtraded, trying to do it a third time. Pretty much scratch type of day. Yesterday focused more on small caps, but still kind of catching FOMO from the bank stocks. So today, goal is to more so just focus on small caps. I have some alarms set on the bank stocks, but looking to just ultimately leave those alone and get back to what I do. And that's this. So today basically started the same as every day, where I look at, so these are on another screen. So just for simplicity purposes, these are the first scans I look at. I know I've only ever mentioned day one gappers, but the day one gapper scan today is pretty weak. So did pull up the day two scans. And as you can see, the day one gappers, we have THMO, which isn't a true day one gapper, and I'll explain why. Jan, which I've seen many times in the past. Day two, THMO is listed again, and again, I'll show why. HUBC, and then a couple gap downs. HUBC is listed here as well because it's been choppy, but anyway, HUBC, JNCE, THMO, and JAN are the four that are most interesting, and the four I'm going to try to break down here fairly quickly. Try to be a little quicker this morning than I have on others. So I already have them here in my charting software, again, just for the sake of time. But let's just start with THMO. I think that's the one many people are probably already familiar with after yesterday. So this is yesterday's chart right in here. I and many people, I think me and sellers both shorted this yesterday, and we both wanted what we like to call fake breakout. Get into yesterday's chart a little closer. This is yesterday's chart, but we both wanted a fake breakout. That's what we call this really nice candle right here. However, it was very fast. This happened in about 10 seconds. And of course, I was watching the bank stocks when that happened. So I completely missed it because it came out of nowhere. So anyway, I did catch some in pre-market. I suck at pre-market trading. I normally hate pre-market trading. Typically if I ever do trade pre-market, it's just to cure my FOMO. So I never had any real size on it. I would have wanted to add my full size into that move right there. I missed it. So I never got a full size trade on this, despite the nice fade from my entry. Because I think my average was around 510 or so. And I mean, it did fade pretty nice. However, after hours, we got this. And I think I covered right in here. And I even posted that I had no interest in swinging a sub 1 mil float. This thing is a sub 1 mil float, essentially. I don't swing stuff like that even if I'm up nicely. I would have never anticipated this type of move. This is super sketchy, super wild. I haven't seen something like that in quite some time. And I think some shorts probably either got into it here or held whatever their average was, thinking it would gap down, because we've seen some after hour moves spike up but then gap down. This thing has held and has went higher. So this was the first thing on that day one gapper scan. However, it is not a true day one gapper because it ran yesterday. I mean, this thing's up from 2. So up hundreds of percents, but it's not a true day one gapper. So now we're into it on day two. And let me switch to this other screen here. This is that screen where I got the same chart on 4 different time frames. Unfortunately, with this one, it's just a tough daily. But there's not a lot of areas in the recent time frames that even has the slightest bit of support. And me and sellers were talking about this yesterday. You could maybe look at this where it touches here a few times, right at 8, 10. It might be worth a shot, but the old gap fill is basically right at 10. So this thing is just in a kind of a weird nebulous spot where I'm not too excited about getting into this thing early. There is a ton of range on this. It's going to create a ton of FOMO for people. I think it could definitely go higher. Sub-mil float, like if I pull this thing up in flash sec, this is where I always go for my float information. You can look at trade ideas, you can look at FinViz, there's 1,000 different places to look at float. I like flash sec. They say they update it as much as they can based on the most recent financials. But anyway, the float listed is 1 million. You add in some, institutional holdings and things of that nature, it's probably sub-mil. They're broke. They barely have any cash left. I'm sure there's an agenda here to finish dumping some of this stuff. Anyway, with that, though, I still wouldn't want to be early. And if you look at it, so this is Cobra, or DOS, excuse me. But on this chart here, this is my 15-minute with a volume profile attached. And if you look, obviously there was a ton of volume in this range here. Of course, that's because we're consolidated yesterday. But on this run up, it is super thin. So as easily as it could rip up, it could just, the bottom could fall out and it could get back into these levels where there is some support super quick. Either way, if I were to draw lines on this thing, I would watch this 775 to 810 area, see how it reacts in there, because there was a little bit of, where it's respected that level a few times over. Don't love it because there's literally zero volume, nothing. And then here you have the old gap fill. So 810, 10, I guess if I were to draw lines, that's where it would be. However, this thing could rip to 20. Sub-mil, probably a lot of short stuck. It has not given shorts a single exit. Not a single. I mean, if you got in early, this was not a bad exit. I mean, I think I got 20% out of this thing. It has a ton of range, but realistically, if a lot of shorts got into it here or here, it just never really gave them exit. And if they held over thinking it was going to gap down, obviously it's held, went higher, and they've yet to get an exit. So there's probably a lot of shorts stuck. And to be honest, I don't even know if there's locates. I haven't even looked yet. Let's see. This is just through Cobra, just for my own. They got some available. Roughly 10 cents a share. 11 cents if I wanted a lot. Anyway, it's a tough one. But again, no interest in being early. I would not short into these levels that I've marked. I would definitely be reactionary and see how it reacts at those levels and see if there is a failed follow through at those levels before I ever touched it. I would not want to anticipate any sort of resistance on this thing or failure. Sub-mil float, it's shown to be wild. It's shown its personality. No reason to be early. I would wait for some parabolic move into these levels or some major failed follow through before I ever even look to mess with it. So again, not a true day one gapper. This is more of a day two gap up. The only true day one gapper is this one here. Let me just go back to the other one, pull up 4 time frames on it. Jan, which I've seen multiple times. Yeah, gap stats, it's gapped 13 times. Quite a few recently. This thing has a history of being somewhat of a headache, if I remember right. However, it also has a history, per the gap stats, of failing pretty regularly. However, just looking at some of these recent gaps, it looks like on some of these gaps, though, the spikes after open on some of these gaps can be pretty deadly. And it's pretty beat down, so if I were to try to find any viable levels, I'm going to have to zoom in. So my immediate reaction here to, I've mentioned before, whole dollar levels, psychological thing. And if you look at the daily, it does have some, I mean, it's got some touches and some respects to that 2 level. Not phenomenal. Here, on this last run up, it had a ton of volume. But I mean, this last run up was significantly higher than where it is now. So it has a long way to go to get up into that. So we'll see. I wouldn't anticipate it would get that high, especially with the market being as choppy as it is. But again, I like to know everything about a stock. So I would use FlashSec. Just get an idea of what's what. It is a low floater. 2.5 mil float. For me, anything under 5 is definitely a low float. Really under 10, most people consider a low float, but under 5 is when it really starts to get tricky. I used to not even trade stuff under 2-3 mil because it can get really pretty wild. So low float, low institutional ownership, however, broke as shit with an open S3. And they've done, they've diluted before, back in 2021. No warrants or anything like that. They do have an open shelf. Majority of it remaining. They are broke. It is a low floater. I would expect a lot of games like this. Like I said, I drew the 2 level, psychological level, has some respect on the daily. Obviously went parabolic above that. But this is what I would like to see after open. The 2 level has shown in pre-market some respect there. It had a nice fake breakout above 2 and instantly came back down. So I would like to see after open this type move. If it really went above this and held, that's where it gets tricky because there's not a lot of stuff on the daily where it even gets, because this big, huge volume day, let's see on 6-7, let's go over here. This was the last big run-up day. So the last big run-up day, you could maybe look at the, because it's trading it under 2, you could maybe use the bottom of the last big run-up day because all these people that bought up in here are hardcore bagged. And the run started around 240. That could be a solid level. However, beyond that, I would just definitely patiently wait till 3. Like I said, I remember Jan being tricky in the past. I'm sure Sellers would say the same. I'm sure he remembers that name. So levels drawn, I like to draw outlier levels. That way, if it gets up into those levels, at least you have some level of preparedness. We know that they are broke. We know that it can be tricky. But Jan has played many games in the past, so at least we have some levels drawn. I used to trade in a room with a guy who was very disciplined, I guess. He drew outer lines similar to maybe this 3 level, and he would just patiently wait for these stocks to hit these outer lines, or he wouldn't even trade it. Pretty incredible discipline. Sometimes I wish I was better about stuff like that, but he didn't take a lot of trades, but the trades he took were excellent risk reward, and that kept him safe. So there's nothing wrong with waiting for these outer lines, especially on these low floaters. Like, I wouldn't blame anybody for not even taking a short on this at 2, because it could easily rip to 3. But anyway, lines on that drawn, pretty beat down daily. Yeah, sellers likes Jan. I do too. I would love if I could see a move like this. Now, granted, this is a 5-minute chart, so if you come over here on a minute chart, it looked more like that. Either way, I would definitely consider that a fake breakout. But if I could see a fake breakout move like this, especially on a 2-minute chart above 2 like that, I would take that. Similar to what THMO did yesterday. Of course, I missed it because I'm looking at the stupid offering on THMO. That's how you let shorts out. So this is Small Cap 101. This is what it is. We had mentioned THMO is broke. They need cash. They had an open S3. They had this really nice run up. And now they've done an offering. Wow. Let's see if I can find. Oh, man. That sucks because that kind of kills the play on the day. And it's not in here yet. These things happen pre-market before a lot of people can report. However, one good place actually to get information is Twitter. As bad as that is, I'm sure if I search that ticker, it's going to pop up for me. Offering priced at 265 is what that's saying. Price of 280 per share. Warrants have an exercise price of 265. Yeah, it's kind of mixed, but basically 280 per share, so it's probably going to go lower, I would assume. Small Cap 101, man. They do these run-ups when they're broke, and it's what they do. This is why I don't like to be long these things. Ooh, that's nasty. So any longs that were chasing this and were real excited about this run-up, a huge dump. That's nasty. It's probably going to go lower. If I traded pre-market, I probably would hit it now because offering dead cat bounce, I'd probably hit that. However, I'm not going to get into pre-market trading, especially during this, but shit, that's nasty. That's what they do. Small Cap 101. That's why I don't like to long these things. They can drop these things at any point in time, but that's how they get their money. These companies are complete crap. Good call, sellers on the offering. Sellers are probably short right now. I would be if I traded pre-market right now. Damn. That kind of sucks. We'll see how it opens. Those outer lines are a FARC. That's not going to happen. Shouldn't happen. I would use yesterday's consolidation. It fell below this consolidation. I don't normally like the short weakness, but on something like that, that changes everything. Typically, when something like that happens, I usually just take it off unless by some miracle after open it spikes back up into these pre-market levels. You know, I'd look to get involved, or just a complete breakdown, maybe a break of yesterday's VWAP, because it pretty much held the same VWAP level all day. Broke below that, I'd take a short after open, or it popped back to these levels, which very doubtful. I haven't looked into the offering. Could be one of those weird ones where it's a private placement of cash and those get spun with a more bullish theme. Still a bunch of crap, but anyway. Kind of sucks. I just want to talk about these last two real quick. JNCE, it was a day one gapper. It held its gains basically, and now it's kind of chopped around. It closed here, so technically it's considering it a day two gap down because here was the close point. Here's where it's currently at. So because it held up, but it is gapping down, it's considered a day two gap down. And then over here you have HUBC. This one's more, at this point, depending on how it opens, more of a multi-day runner. But either way, on both of these type of plays, I would look for a lower high, as close to the high yesterday as possible. So JNCE, I'd look for it at 160. It gives you a really good risk reward because if it breaks through 164 and holds, easy exit with a low risk profile with potential for a great reward. Same with HUBC. However, for me, in the last year or so, day twos have not worked well. I don't trade them with much size because of that. But not saying I wouldn't take a stab at it, but day twos for me, just to be transparent, have not worked as well. So I don't get as excited about them. Actually, this HUBC, because it's more of a multi-day runner. Let me change the time frame. I mean, this thing really started up from a $1.25 and has kind of just slowly run up. So at its peak, it was almost up 100%. But I would look for lower high because it's had some volume the last couple of days, especially right in here. Maybe that was the blowout volume. Maybe we get a lower volume push. Somewhat of a failed follow through because the volume fades off in a fade. I actually like HUBC better than I do JNCE, but I would treat both the same. Those lower highs. THMO sucks. Fucking pre-market offering. Kills a play. But great example of why you don't want to chase this stuff, because I guarantee you, Twitter was going crazy this morning and yesterday after hours on this curl and run. Everybody was pumping it. I'm sure there were multiple rooms, multiple gurus, as they call them, pumping this thing. Like, oh, it's going to 10. Oh, it's going to fill the old gap we talked about, whatever. Guarantee you was getting pumped. Low float stocks like this tend to get pumped a lot harder because they're easier for those type of rooms to move, especially if those rooms have a decent amount of members. But that's what you get. That's nasty. It is almost 100% drop. I mean, from 7 to almost 350. It's nasty. I'm going to look at one last one that just popped up. Popped up big. Lipo. I don't even know what the news is. It's a pharmaceutical biotech something, blah, blah, blah. Phase 2, phase 3, whatever. What is it? Yeah, successful completion of phase 2. I will play phase 2 things. Not a big fan of playing phase 3 things. However, for the sake of time, I'm not going to dig into that whole PR. But Lipo, if you look at gap stats, only one gap. It's this one here. This was the day. I remember this. Gapped up huge. Faded all day long. Not even hardly a pop at open. Not saying that won't happen again or will happen again because you only really have one day to go off of. With not a ton of volume, only traded 8 million that day, which isn't a lot. This is pretty low float. Around 2.5 million is what Trade Ideas is showing. But let me look at it in here. Yeah, see, it's so new that there's not a lot of volume to go off of yet. But I do like to use on these the volume profile in pre-market and see where the buyers, sellers are, where the levels are created in pre-market. It's just so new. This just started popping 10 minutes ago. Let me go back. It's pretty beat down too. So as far as looking at levels, obviously there's this huge outlier level here. Not a ton of volume behind it though. So when I'm looking, when you see, or when I see outlier levels like this, I am not a huge fan of that. This is a nice whole dollar right at 4. There's not a ton of volume. If 4 had some more touches, even on low volume, I'd get more excited about it. But when I have one outlier level on low volume, I just don't get real excited. The only reason I kind of like that is because it is at a whole dollar number, which a lot of times are psychological. If it were at like 420 or 430, I would like it even less. Still don't love it. This one I like much better. Now it's got a ways to go to get to 6. It would have to run another 100%. But when there's volume behind the move, it lets me know there's more bag holders there. However, again, I don't hate this because not too long before this move here, there was this move here. So people got into it, got bagged. Maybe some got out, but the majority didn't. So there's still a lot of people that are bagged. So maybe if it pops up to 4 again, these people that bought it in here would go ahead and just use that as their exit liquidity. So I'm not saying I wouldn't try it at 4. Don't love it at 4. I'd probably take a shot, small size. But not a lot of gap stats. Newer-ish IPO. So, yeah. Anyway, damn, I'm like stuck on this freaking offering. My guess is the offering is priced at 280. It's holding up now. I would assume it open, it just dies. That's my guess. Like I said, I haven't looked too much into the filing, obviously. But if that filing is indeed priced at 280, I read the initial headline was private placement. Like I said, sometimes those can have a more bullish theme behind them that get people a little more excited because it shows promise and strength in the company, none of which I believe. However, they are easier to spin a little more bullish than like a just straight up at the market offering. I haven't looked into it though, but we got this. We got Jan. So we have a couple solid movers here that may create some opportunity. Like I said, here I would look for lower highs. LiPo. You know, I'm going to let this one play out. We still got 45 minutes before open. But the 4 level is definitely viable. I don't love it. I'd take a shot at it. Other than the 4, I mean, if it chops around here and this is about where it opens, I don't hate using the pre-market levels, especially between 3 and 314. Again, kind of somewhat of a psychological level. But if it busts through that and breaks, the next spot I would even attempt to wait would be 4. Or I'd look for a lower high on the intraday levels. But they're all low floats. They're all going to be tricky. None of them are going to be easy. So, anyway, let me get off here. 45 minutes. Nope, I'm sorry. Yeah, 45 minutes before open. Hopefully this was helpful for some people. Me and sellers are going to do some live trade recap today instead of Friday because tomorrow is my son's birthday. I will not be trading. I will not even turn this computer on because birthday. So, good luck. Be safe. Trade well. All those euphemisms. Hopefully this was helpful. We'll do it again more often. Recap today at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. market time. And with that, I'm out. Peace.